You ever have those days, or maybe weeks, where you just feel like you're running on fumes? Like you're constantly pouring from your cup for everyone else, but there's nothing left for you? Well, you're not alone. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into a really powerful book called You Don't Owe Anyone by Caroline Garnet McGraw. We're going to figure out why we feel this way, and more importantly, how we can start to reclaim our own lives. All right, so let's get right into it. The book really tackles this feeling that honestly feels like an epidemic these days, right? It's this deep down belief that we owe the world everything, our energy, our time, even our own exhaustion. It's wild when you think about it. So the big question is, where does that even come from? I mean, why are so many of us just trapped in this cycle of giving and giving until we're completely wiped out? The book makes a really important point. It's not some personal flaw. It's not your fault. It's actually the result of years and years of, subtle social programming. Yeah, it's kind of like we're all handed this invisible rule book when we're kids. You know the one. It says you have to be good, you have to be available 24/7, you've got to be understanding of everyone else's problems, and above all, be selfless. Now, being selfless is a good thing, right? But the way we're taught it often gets twisted into meaning we have to just shove our own needs onto the back burner. Always. Okay, so if we're all stuck in this burnout culture, how in the world do we get out? Well, this is where the book introduces a really simple, but honestly pretty radical idea. It's something that completely flips our whole understanding of what we owe other people right on its head. And here it is. This is really the heart of the whole book. You do not have to earn the right to exist, to be loved, or to set boundaries. Just let that sink in for a second. This is a direct shot at that fear of rejection that makes so many of us people pleasers. The book is basically saying, look, your worth isn't something you have to go out and earn every single day. It's just there. You have it, period. So let's break this down into some real world stuff. First up, you do not owe anyone constant availability. Seriously, you are not a 24/7 convenience store for other people's needs. Your time, your energy, that's your most valuable currency, and you get to decide how to spend it. No one else. Next, you don't owe anyone explanations for your life choices. Your career, who you date, where you live, that's your life. It's your path. You don't need to get it approved by a committee. Okay, and this one is huge. You don't owe anyone tolerance for being treated poorly. You actually have the power to decide what you will and will not accept. See, self-respect isn't just some vague feeling, it's an action. It's actively choosing not to be a doormat. And how about this one? You don't owe forgiveness if you're not ready. Look, forgiveness is a really personal journey, right? It's not a deadline that someone else gets to set for you. It's a gift, sure, but it's one you give to yourself, and only when you're actually ready to give it. And to wrap up this list, you don't owe your peace for someone else's expectations. Your mental well-being, your inner peace, that is your most valuable asset. Trading that away just to make someone else happy, that is a terrible deal, and it's one you never, ever have to take. Okay, so if we're not in debt to everyone and their expectations, how do we actually start living this way? How do we live for ourselves? Well, the book gives us a super practical toolkit, and the number one tool in that box is learning how to set some really effective boundaries. The very first step is to kind of rethink what boundaries even are. A lot of us think of them as these giant brick walls we build to keep people out, but that's not it at all. A better way to think about them is like a fence around your own backyard. It's just a way of saying, hey, this is my space, it's where I live, and I get to decide who and what I let in. So what are we protecting with this fence? Well, it's all your most valuable stuff. Your energy, your time, your mental health. And here's the part that might surprise you. Setting good boundaries actually makes your relationships better, not worse, because suddenly they're built on real mutual respect. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but what if people get mad at me? And that's a real fear. But you gotta remember this. Healthy people, people who genuinely care about you, will respect your boundaries. The only people who are going to have a problem are the ones who are profiting from you not having any. So in a way, their negative reaction is a gift. It's like a big, bright sign telling you exactly who they are. And that brings us to maybe the single biggest hurdle for most people, right? That deep-seated fear of being seen as selfish. So let's just tackle that head on and break down exactly why it's a total myth. The difference here is actually pretty simple, but it is so crucial. Selfishness, that's when you completely ignore the needs of other people. It comes from a place of disregard. But healthy boundaries, that's about protecting and honoring your own needs. It comes from a place of self-respect. See the difference? It's huge. And this is where the real freedom kicks in. You are not responsible for how other people feel. Let me say that again. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. When you set a boundary and they get upset, that's on them to manage, not you. Genuinely, if you can just internalize this one idea, it can change absolutely everything. So once you let go of that burden, that feeling that you have to manage everyone else's feelings, you can finally do something amazing. You can give yourself permission. Think of it like a permission slip you write for yourself, one that says it's okay to choose yourself completely guilt-free. So what does this permission slip let you do? Well, it lets you refuse things without feeling guilty. It lets you rest when you're tired without feeling like you need a doctor's note to justify it. It gives you the freedom to change your direction if something's not working without fear. And, crucially, it gives you the strength to end relationships that are hurting you. And this quote just sums it up perfectly. Your no is a complete sentence. That's it. You don't need a 5-paragraph essay explaining why. You don't have to apologize for it. Your no is enough, all by itself. You know, this whole idea really changes how we should think about self-care. It's not a luxury. It's not just about bubble baths and face masks, though those are nice. Real self-care is a responsibility you have to yourself. It's the daily, sometimes tough practice of showing up for yourself, protecting your energy, and treating your own needs as totally non-negotiable. So it turns out, after all this talk about not owing anyone, you do actually owe someone something. You owe it to yourself. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself respect. And you owe yourself a life that feels truly, authentically yours. And you know what? That's the one and only debt that's absolutely worth paying.